The rain came down in heavy sheets, drumming against the pavement and bouncing off the hoods of the few cars scattered across the nearly empty parking lot. The sky was a dull gray, the kind that made the world feel small and hushed. Emma stepped out of the glass doors of her company's building, her umbrella opening with a sharp click. She was eager to get home, to leave the endless meetings and deadlines behind for the night, but something caught her eye. Off to the side, away from the usual delivery area, a white van sat idling. Its windshield wipers moved in slow, tired arcs, smearing the water rather than clearing it. Inside, through the misted glass, she could make out the shape of a young man in a dark delivery uniform, his head bowed, his hands pressed to his face. At first, she thought he might be on the phone, but as the wipers passed again, she saw the streaks on his cheeks, not from the rain, but from tears. Something about the sight rooted her in place. She didn't know his name, or what had brought him to this moment, but the image of him, alone, soaked, and unraveling, pulled at something deep within her. The parking lot felt emptier, quieter, as though the rain itself was giving them a kind of privacy. She could have walked on, driven away without a word. But she didn't. Instead, she found herself stepping off the curb and walking toward the van, her umbrella tilting forward like a shield against the storm. Emma reached the van and tapped gently on the driver's side window, the sound barely audible over the steady patter of rain. The young man startled, his head snapping up. His eyes were red, his face damp with more than just the weather. For a moment, he seemed unsure whether to roll the window down, but then, with a hesitant motion, he lowered it halfway. A rush of damp, cool air spilled into the small space between them. "You okay?" she asked softly, leaning forward so her voice wouldn't be lost to the rain. He gave a quick, unconvincing nod, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Yeah. I'm fine. Just tired." But Emma didn't move. She kept her gaze steady, and after a moment, the mask slipped. His shoulders sagged, and he let out a shaky breath. "I'm not fine," he admitted, his voice low. He told her his name, Jake, and how his mother had been in the hospital for weeks, the bills piling up faster than he could handle. He'd been delivering packages from sunrise to well past midnight, barely sleeping, barely eating, but it still wasn't enough. Emma listened, saying nothing at first, just letting him speak. The rain drummed on the roof above them like an impatient metronome, but she didn't rush him. She could see the exhaustion in the slump of his posture, hear the quiet desperation in his words. And in that moment, she realized this wasn't just about money, this was about a young man on the edge, holding his whole life together with fraying threads. The rain had eased to a softer drizzle, the kind that clung to skin and hair like a whisper. Parking lot lights cast long, hazy beams across the wet asphalt, and the glow seemed to wrap the two of them in a small circle of quiet. Emma shifted her umbrella to her other hand, her gaze fixed on Jake. She could see how every sentence seemed to cost him something, how even speaking of his struggles felt like admitting defeat. She didn't want to offer pity, that wasn't what he needed. What she saw instead was grit. He'd been pushing himself past exhaustion, not for himself, but for someone he loved. That kind of devotion couldn't be taught, it was rare, and it was valuable. "Jake," she said slowly, choosing her words with care, "you've been showing up, every day, in every kind of weather, working through all of this. Do you realize how many people wouldn't have the strength to keep going?" He gave a small, confused shrug, unsure where she was going with this. Emma took a breath. "What if I told you? I have a position at my company that needs someone like you. Not as a driver, something better. Steady hours, better pay, room to grow. I can teach you the rest." Jake stared at her as though the rain itself had stopped. His eyes widened, searching her face for any sign that this was a joke. But she wasn't smiling in jest, her expression was calm, certain, and completely serious. The following Monday morning, the sky was bright and clear, a sharp contrast to the stormy evening that had first brought them face to face. Jake stood at the entrance of Emma's office building, dressed in a clean, button-up shirt and dark slacks that still felt strange compared to his worn delivery uniform. He clutched a folder under his arm, resume, ID, and a small stack of documents Emma's assistant had told him to bring. As he stepped inside, the hum of conversation and the scent of fresh coffee washed over him. He felt both out of place and oddly hopeful, like he was standing at the threshold of something entirely new. Emma emerged from her office with a bright smile, extending her hand. "You made it," she said warmly, and the words felt heavier than they sounded, as if they carried more meaning than just arriving on time. She introduced him to the team as their new logistics coordinator. There was polite applause, a few curious smiles, and someone offered him coffee. Jake tried to return each greeting, though his voice wavered slightly from nerves. When Emma handed him a company badge with his name printed in bold letters, his fingers lingered on it for a moment. This wasn't just a piece of plastic, it was proof that he had been given a chance, one he hadn't even dared to imagine just days earlier. Standing there, in a place he never thought he belonged, Jake felt something he hadn't in a long time, the solid ground of a future taking shape beneath his feet. 6 months later, the parking lot looked nothing like it had on that rain-soaked day. The late afternoon sun bathed everything in warm gold, the asphalt dry and warm underfoot. Jake stood beside a sleek company van, loading neatly labeled packages into the back. His movements were confident, his posture upright, no longer the hunched, exhausted figure Emma had first seen in the shadows. Inside the van, a clipboard rested on the passenger seat, along with a thermos of coffee he'd brewed that morning before work. His mother's hospital bills were fully paid now, and she was home, recovering well. For the first time in years, he was saving money, not just scraping by, but building something. Emma crossed the lot toward him, her heels clicking lightly on the pavement. She didn't say anything at first, just gave him a proud smile. He returned it, and in that simple exchange was the unspoken acknowledgement of everything that had changed. "Looks like you've got it all under control," she said lightly. Jake chuckled, wiping his hands on his cargo pants. "Feels like it too." They stood for a moment, looking out over the lot, the van, the life he now carried forward. Emma knew her offer that rainy night had changed his path, but Jake had done the work to walk it. And as he climbed into the driver's seat, sunlight catching on the badge clipped to his shirt, it was clear, a single moment of kindness had given him more than a job, it had given him a future.